General Hospital spoilers tease that Dalton and Sidwell, two characters who seem to have nothing in common, have come together to form a dangerous, dark alliance that threatens to destroy not only a field of science, but possibly an entire community. What began as a simple working relationship between a renowned professor and a wealthy investor has now become a dark conspiracy, with the aim of manipulating not only science, but also human lives. Dalton, a professor with a rare talent in the field of medical research, has always longed for recognition and reached great achievements in his profession. But in the shadow of the dark experiments that Sidwell dragged him into, Dalton's reputation gradually fades and is replaced by a dangerous game. Sidwell, who has immense wealth and extensive power relationships, sees Dalton not only as a partner in work but also as an important pawn in his power plan. He knew that to achieve the grand goals he had set, he needed someone capable and trustworthy to carry them out. And Dalton, with his expertise and personal ambition, was the man Sidwell needed. But Sidwell didn't want to use Dalton as a tool. He wanted to use him as a guide, to help open doors that no one had dared to enter before. It was a dark path filled with risky biological and medical experiments, unproven therapies, and biological breakthroughs that could change the genetic makeup of humans. The goal wasn't to cure diseases, but to create people who could be easily controlled, bioweapons of limitless power. While Dalton was still hesitant, not yet fully immersed in Sidwell's quagmire, the promises of greatness were gradually blinding him. Advances in science and research are opening up new horizons that Dalton never dreamed of. Sidwell not only promises to fund the research but also pledges to make Dalton a symbol of science. But what Dalton doesn't realize is that he has become part of a larger plan, with the purpose not to save humanity but to manipulate it. The research they are doing is not simply testing on mice or human cells. What they are doing is turning people into tools. These experiments involve not only changing the genetic structure but also creating people who are completely subservient to Sidwell's will, people who will follow orders at will. Sidwell, with his dark vision, is creating an army of people who are incapable of resisting his will. And Dalton, despite what he once stood for, is walking into his own trap with no way back. However, a glimmer of hope comes from the only person who can see through their plans, Emma Scorpio Drake, an enthusiastic and curious student. Emma quickly realizes that Dalton's experiments are more than just scientific research. She notices that there are signs of irregularities in the reports, in the experiments that others have not noticed. Emma is not one to accept things that are unclear. She begins to investigate what is really going on in Dalton's lab and gradually discovers that these experiments may not only threaten the health of the participants, but may also turn them into tools completely under Sidwell's control. Thus begins a secret confrontation. Emma must not only face Dalton, who was once a respected professor, but also Sidwell, whose true intentions she has no way of knowing. Emma is the only one in the group of students who is aware of this danger, and she decides not to stand still. She begins to gather documents and evidence, to find a way to stop these monstrous experiments before they cause irreversible consequences. But she cannot do it alone. Meanwhile, Jocelyn Jacks, a close friend of Emma's and part of her first WSB mission, begins to notice changes in Dalton's behavior. As part of the intelligence network, she keeps an eye out for unusual signs. At first, she thinks these are just minor incidents, but as the events escalate, Jocelyn realizes that Emma is closer to danger than she ever imagined. But how can she save her friend without exposing her identity as a super spy? And will Emma become the next victim of an irreversible experiment? Jocelyn faces a difficult choice. Can she save Emma and expose her identity as a spy, or can she stand aside and let Emma face death? Each decision carries a high price. And all the while, Sidwell and Dalton continue to advance toward their goal, with new experiments that will change not only science, but society as a whole. Can anyone stop the dark path they are on? Or will everyone pay the price for Sidwell's boundless ambition and Dalton's blindness? This is not just a story about science and medicine, but a story about power, manipulation, and the decisions people face when they get lost in their own ambitions. When the price of sacrifice can be their lives, will anyone be able to find out the truth before it's too late? Emma has not only stepped into a dangerous situation, but she has also fallen deeper into a secret that she can't escape now. She knows too much about the dark experiments that Dalton and Sidwell are conducting. She not only knows about the manipulation of humans through biological experiments, but also realizes the dark plots that the two are secretly carrying out. This plunged her into a world with no way out, where every step she took was fraught with danger. Ever since she began her research with Dalton, Emma had no idea that the seemingly harmless work would have profound and dark consequences. The scientific breakthroughs Dalton spoke of were actually a cover for a plan to brainwash, manipulate people, and use them as tools for Sidwell's power. The deeper Emma dug into her research, the more she realized that everything was not as it seemed. Every experimental result she saw contained dangers she could not fully understand, and the closer she got to the truth, the more she felt like she was entering a game from which she could never retreat. Dalton, who could have been a trusted friend and mentor, gradually became part of Sidwell's dark plan. Their relationship is no longer that of working partners, but a dangerous combination, where Dalton is no longer just a bystander but the one who drives and carries out those plans. Emma, with all her curiosity and desire to discover the truth, inevitably discovers what is really going on in that lab. But now, the truth she holds is no longer an advantage. It becomes an extremely great danger, something she cannot share, cannot reveal without paying the price. As Emma realizes how much she knows, she begins to feel a change in the way Dalton sees her. At first, he treated her as a research partner, but now, she senses doubt and tension in his eyes. Suspicion is not because of what she did wrong, but because of what she knows. And that's when Emma realizes that there's no room for know-it-alls in a game like this. Dalton and Sidwell, though they tried to act like bystanders, have become manipulators and deceivers. And Emma is now part of the plan, a part they're willing to sacrifice to protect their secrets. Emma's every move is now being watched. She's no longer an outsider. No longer an innocent student seeking the truth in a research project. She's part of a power game where she can't change her fate unless she decides to act. And her actions, no matter what, will only put her in even more danger. As Emma gets closer to the truth, she feels that things are getting out of control. The threat from Dalton and Sidwell becomes more and more apparent. And Emma knows that she can no longer trust anyone in that lab. But she cannot stay silent. She cannot ignore what she has discovered. Those secrets cannot be left unexposed, cannot be buried. Emma knows that her own safety is no longer important, but that it is important to stop these experiments before they become dangerous weapons out of control. Meanwhile, Emma's best friend Jocelyn begins to notice signs of trouble. Jocelyn has always known that her work at WSB is dangerous, but what Emma is facing makes her unable to sit still. Jocelyn is not someone who gives up easily, and when she learns that Emma is in danger, she decides to take action. However, this is not an easy decision. She couldn't reveal her identity as a spy. But she couldn't let Emma face the danger on her own. Jocelyn understood that once she decided to intervene, she would not only have to face Dalton and Sidwell, but also the consequences that her decision could cause. Once her identity as a spy was revealed, not only her career but Emma's life would be threatened. Jocelyn was faced with a choice. Save Emma and face the unpredictable danger, or stay out of the game and let Emma deal with it herself. She knew that no matter which path she chose, there would be a price to pay. She could lose her career, her identity, and even her own life, but if she didn't act, Emma might lose everything. This decision was not simple, but Jocelyn couldn't go back. With every decision she made, the situation became more complicated. Emma and Jocelyn are facing ever greater dangers, and their every move could have unforeseen consequences. Tensions are high, and they are both aware that one small mistake could send everything spiraling downward. They are both facing the reality that, when playing in such a power game, no one can escape without paying the price. But can they protect each other and survive this war, or will they all be swept away in the storm they themselves have created? Emma and Jocelyn are at a turning point in their lives, and the truth they are slowly discovering will not only be a huge shock to them, but may also change the system they once believed in. The decisions they are facing are not simply to protect themselves, but also to protect the values they have sacrificed and fought for. But now, as terrible secrets begin to be revealed, the two learn that their battle is no longer a battle between simple spies, but a life-or-death struggle between powerful manipulators and those caught in the web of truth. As Emma begins to unravel the dark secrets of the experiments Dalton and Sidwell are conducting, she has no idea that these truths will lead her down a path where every choice carries a terrible price. She once thought she was facing a simple battle of wits, where uncovering the truth was just part of being a spy. But what she discovers is a complex web of conspiracies that threatens not only her life, but everything she believes in. Emma's every move is now fraught with danger, not because of villains like Dalton or Sidwell, but because of the very organizations she once belonged to. The WSB. An organization she always considered the protector of national security, now seems to be a potential enemy, a power machine that no one can control. This leaves Emma facing a difficult question. Can she continue to fight for the ideals she has pursued for so long? Or will she have to break everything and face the truth that the organizations she once served have become too greedy and ruthless? Jocelyn, Emma's best friend and also part of the WSB, is now faced with a similar choice. When she realizes that the dark experiments Emma has uncovered are not just simple research but part of a plan to manipulate the entire system, Jocelyn cannot stand still. She realizes that she cannot sit idly by and continue to serve an organization that no longer has any noble purpose, but is simply a power machine that manipulates the world from the shadows. However, her actions will not be easy. If she decides to face the truth, it will not only expose her identity as a spy but also put Emma in more danger than ever. Jocelyn cannot help but wonder, can she save her friend without harming herself and everyone around her? As the secrets of WSB and DVX begin to be revealed, Emma and Jocelyn find themselves trapped in a game from which they cannot retreat. The organizations they have served are not simply intelligence agencies. They are massive power machines, manipulating everything from the shadows, controlling even the biggest decisions, not only in their countries but also in the world. What Emma and Jocelyn once thought were simple missions are now part of a conspiracy darker than they could have imagined. The biggest shock Emma and Jocelyn face is the realization that everything they have sacrificed and fought for over the years may have been exploited to serve a dark agenda. The achievements they have made may have been used by powerful people like Sidwell and Dalton to further their own goals, with no regard for the consequences. Both realize that the battles they fought in the past were not for ideals, but for the manipulation of those behind these organizations. With each step, Emma and Jocelyn gradually realize that they are not just facing a dark force, but a vast system of power that has lasted for decades, a system that is now threatened by people like themselves. This not only leaves them feeling betrayed, but also creates a nightmare in their minds. Can they break this system, or will they suffer the collapse of everything they have ever believed in? As the secrets of WSB and DVX are exposed, Emma and Jocelyn face a difficult choice: continue to fight for their values, or destroy everything and start over, without the protection of the organizations they have devoted so many years to. And as the shocks grow louder, as the truth becomes darker and more haunting, what will Emma and Jocelyn do to stop these conspiracies and save what is left of them? The answer to this question may decide not only their fate, but that of the world they once knew. Emma and Jocelyn, two best friends, are now in an unbreakable alliance in a war that is more than they could have ever imagined. This new change not only changes both of their lives, but also puts them on a collision course with powerful and dangerous forces that they never expected. The alliance between Emma and Jocelyn is now more than just a partnership between two spies, but a dramatic, intense combination, where every decision, every action can change their fate. With the dark secrets that Emma discovers about Dalton and Sidwell, and with the increasingly complicated events that Jocelyn begins to realize, the two have decided to cooperate more closely than ever. But this change is not as simple as a personal decision. Their alliance is facing much greater challenges. Not only is Sidwell a mysterious and dangerous man, but there is also Brennan, a new name emerging in the intelligence world, with his own plots. Sidwell and Brennan's plans are not simply to control information or manipulate organizations, but to control the entire system of power from within. Using pawns like Emma and Jocelyn as tools in their game. Sidwell, a character that both Emma and Jocelyn once considered a rival, has now become an extremely dangerous enemy. He not only has strong finances but also a huge network of powerful relationships, enough to manipulate everything from the shadows. What Emma and Jocelyn discover about him not only scares them but also makes them feel deceived. Sidwell is not simply an investor in experiments but also a person with his own plans to usurp power from the organizations they once served. And with Brennan's arrival, things begin to change rapidly. Brennan, with his connections in the underworld, begins to appear as Sidwell's ambitious partner. But what makes things more complicated is Brennan's true goals. Everyone thinks he is just a pawn in Sidwell's game, but in fact he has his own ambitions, wanting to control the entire intelligence system and bring everything under his control. Both Emma and Jocelyn realize that they are facing an unforeseen danger, as both Sidwell and Brennan have dark intentions. The alliance between Emma and Jocelyn, strong and intelligent as it is, does not expect that they will have to face a storm bigger than anything they have experienced. Their relationship is not just a simple friendship or cooperation, but a life and death battle, where every decision can bring terrible shocks. Both are at a crucial crossroads in their lives, and neither can turn back. They must continue to move forward, fighting increasingly powerful enemies while also facing uncontrollable changes in the world they live in. One of the biggest shocks Emma and Jocelyn face is that they have become targets of a plan much larger than they ever thought. The information they possess is now not only a strategic advantage but also a double-edged sword. Every move they make, every action they take, can change the course of a war not only between organizations, but also between supreme powers that they cannot fight. Sidwell and Brennan are calculating every step. And Emma and Jocelyn are just pawns in a giant game whose outcome they cannot predict. Things become even more tense when the secrets of the WSB and DVX organizations begin to be exposed. These two intelligence organizations are not just tools to protect national security, but in fact, monsters that control everything from the shadows. The secret deals, the conspiracies to seize power, all begin to be revealed before Emma and Jocelyn's eyes, making them unable to trust anyone anymore. They realize that these very organizations have gradually become the enemies of the very things they fought and died for. Everything they believed in has become a lie, a trap from which they cannot escape. As these truths are revealed, things seem to go further than Emma and Jocelyn could have imagined. Their relationship with the intelligence agencies is no longer just an enemy, but an all-out confrontation between the most powerful. One of the biggest changes they face is the realization that Sidwell and Brennan are not the only danger. The entire system is being manipulated by forces they cannot control. One of the new shocks is that Sidwell and Brennan are not only Emma and Jocelyn's enemies, but also the ones who control larger systems that they cannot deal with. Their plots are getting more and more elaborate, and things are getting further and further away than Emma and Jocelyn can stop. This war is no longer a war between two close friends and the machinations of an evil person. It has become an all-out war, where everyone is caught up in a game of no return. And the outcome will change not only Emma and Jocelyn's lives, but also the entire system of power they once believed in.